Hello, I'm Hajar Dalawal, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Microsoft. I'm in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, on location at our customer, National Australia Bank, also known as NAB. I am super excited to meet with Andrew, the head of Workplace Technologies, and we're going to chat about Windows 11, modern management, Copilot, and much, much more. Let's go. Hey, Andrew.
Hajit, how are you, mate?
Great to meet you.
Pleased to meet you. You too.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I'm really excited to be here.
Excellent.
All right. So for our viewers, let them know who you are, what you do, and what's your organization all about.
Excellent. Well, my name's Andrew Zahradka. I work in National Australia Bank, which is Australia's second biggest bank in Australia. And I head up the workplace compute engineering space. So we look after all of the desktops, laptops, supporting infrastructure, Intune, everything you can think of that a laptop needs to operate. My team's responsible for making it happen. So
beautiful.
Yeah, we've got a lot of responsibility. We've got 35,000 staff. We're all over the world. We've got 9 other geographic locations we operate in, and we've got 50,000 endpoints. So there's a lot of work.
50,000, all right. So that's a pretty good size, 50,000 endpoints. I believe most of them are physical?
Yep. Yeah, we've got probably 40,000 of those would be physical, 10,000 are virtual, and we've got AVD, or Azure Virtual Desktop, and we're also venturing into the Windows 365 space as well.
Beautiful.
So, you know, there's obviously a need still for our AVD instances, but yeah, we're heading knee deep into Windows 365 territory as well.
Right. You mentioned AVD, Windows 365, things like that. So I assume there's a edge use case for one or the other kind of thing, right?
Yep, spot on. We're finding, Hajit, we're actually finding that we've got a lot of geographic locations. We even have some vendors that do some work for us. There's a great opportunity to provide them with Win365. It's a virtual offering, and we can host it in country. So, you know, we had to obviously go through a number of compliance and regulatory things, and we had to make sure we were appropriately placed for that, and obviously security and all of those things that matter. Right. You know, from that point of view, we've been able to build the service, and look, it's a service that's close to the end user. Sure. So it's a faster service. We're using Azure, you know, the data center in country, and it's hosting locally and close. So we see it as an opportunity moving forward to, you know, provide a really good customer user or end user experience. Right. Yeah. So you feel pretty confident with data being secured and security and all of that? Well, obviously we had to go through all of those, you know, all of those things, all those issues. We had to get sign off. We had to get, you know, penetration testing, all of the things that you would imagine need to be done, you know, to make sure that we uphold our licensing and all the things that matter to us, right? So we've been through the process. We've made sure of a lot of things, and yeah, we've been able to proceed. We're at very early stages. So, you know, piloting and POCing have been really, really impressive. We're really confident with where we're headed. We think it'll work. Okay. And, you know, I mean, we'll probably go into our desktop, laptop, SOE environment in a minute. But what we've done there is enabled us to be able to use Win365 really quickly, just get up to speed.
So I've talked to, you know, several customers and stuff like that, and it was very interesting to learn why they were using Windows 365 especially, and what was due to mergers and acquisitions. So they were able to quickly onboard people from the company that they actually, you know, acquired, and, you know, without any loss of time and you know, productivity, you know, quickly onboarded, and then they figured out at some point what to do with your physical devices, right? Sure. To wipe and reload, kind of a thing. Is that something similar you guys are doing?
It's similar. We've look, our executive management team have pushed us to be bleeding edge in every way, right? So we moved away from a traditionally managed SOE device where you have a build, you have to deploy the build on a corporate network. We've taken it a step further. We obviously spoke with Microsoft before we made this decision, and we decided from an engineering point of view it made a lot of sense to have a cloud managed SOE, if you like,
Sure.
traditional word. And effectively that means we can use any out-of-the-box OEM type scenario where we can go to a vendor,
Right.
we can receive a laptop from the vendor, we get that out-of-box experience. You don't need to be connected to a corporate network, and we're able to then layer all of the services that we need or an employee would need to be able to do their job.
Okay.
And because of that enablement, it gives us the Win365 opportunity really quickly. But the other thing that it does is it actually allows us, maybe similar to your other customers, we've probably gone a little bit further in the sense that we can still give that Win365 experience where we hand them a device. They don't need to be in a NAB office. They don't need to be connected to a corporate network. They can simply connect to any network, and then start the enrolment process.
Sure.
The device will check in with Intune. It'll know that it's a NAB device. It'll ask for NAB credentials, and the person is up and running and away.
Right.
And over a period of the next 20 minutes or so, all the services come down and are available for the person.
They're ready to go.
Yeah, and look, it's been really good. So having that deviation and moving to a cloud managed environment, it means Win365 and any other
Windows 11.
correct. All of those services allows us just to be able to turn them on, and staff can start using it pretty much straight away.
One thing that I'm really excited with your organization is you are one of the early adopters of Windows 11.
Yeah.
You didn't hesitate. You went quickly.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Like, your journey to Windows 11. What prompted you guys to do it really quickly, efficiently, and things like that?
Yeah, sure, Ajit. So look, we've got a lot of apps. We're a bank. We've been around 100 plus years. We've got a lot of legacy infrastructure. We've really done a great job. The team, not myself, but the wider NAB technology team, done a really great job of modernising all of our infrastructure. So we've been looking at modernising all of our infrastructure. They've been on a bit of a journey, our application teams, our asset teams, our technology teams, in moving to things to cloud, looking at all of those services that are available to us.
Sure.
So they've been on a modern journey, and so have we. So we probably made a decision 3-4 years ago, really, with Windows 10 to move to, evergreen is what we like to
calling it.
That's like we like to term the phrase. But it means that when a patch is available, when an update, a half-yearly update's available, we take it up straight away.
Okay.
It does require us to, be tightly aligned with our asset teams and our technology teams. We kind of push it, and there's we have various pilot rings, and they do their testing, and we get some feedback pretty quickly. We try to resolve as much as we can.
That's for the patching side of things,
correct,
right?
Yeah. Well, also not just the security patching, but obviously the OS patching.
I see. Right.
So obviously as Microsoft have moved into their that half-yearly operating system uplift, we've fallen and we've adopted that as well. So we make sure that we're current. And really what that's enabled us to do is, move from Win 10 to Win 11 has been almost like a minor revision update for us.
Minor revision, exactly.
And we've been doing it for 3 years.
Yeah, it's just an update.
Yeah, correct. So it's, we sort of employed that philosophy probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then that's allowed us to just go from 10 to 11.
How did you approach your applications? What did you guys do with, app compatibility? Did you run into any of those? I'm sure you have,
of course,
a ton of line of business apps, right?
We do. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It hasn't. We can't stand here and say that everything was amazing.
No, of course not.
Like any organisation, and a large one like this, we have. We had our difficulties. There's no doubt about it. We won't lie. But yeah, look, we've got a really good engineering team. I have to give credit where credit's due. We've got a really good team. They've been around a while. They know a lot of our applications inside out, and they've worked really, really hard to work with the teams to try and uncover ways to move forward, unblock things that might be preventing us from moving forward.
Right.
Really, I love my team, but I think they've done an amazing job. They're incredible to work with. But the other thing as well that's happened, and I talked a bit before about the modernisation of apps, we're moving away from the thick client install to more web-based access, right? So a lot of the banking systems have moved from that traditional thick, heavy client install, which requires patching, which requires updates. We're not there yet. We've still got a few around, but certainly a lot of the application teams have adopted that web-based access enumeration for applications. And so basically, we're in a position now where we're able to have less installed, and of course that's helped. But we had a heap of challenges.
Oh,
along the
I'm
way.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're in a hybrid situation, from my understanding, in terms of device management and things like that.
We still are. Yeah.
So you're using Config Manager.
Yeah. Correct.
You're doing co-management.
Yes.
And you're also doing Intune.
Yes.
Right. So co-management with Intune.
Yeah.
So what prompted you? What was your main reasons or motivations from moving from your on-prem? Well, you still are using it, but
Still using it.
you're kind of like migrating over.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was the motivation and things like that?
Oh, look, it's still a place, obviously, for on-prem management and all of those services. We just see, from a future point of view, we've had a lot of conversations with Microsoft directly. It's pretty obvious to us that Intune, is where the investment is from a Microsoft point of view.
Sure.
And we kind of want to land ourselves in that spot. We're investing so much time and effort in a modern way of working. A lot of the conversations that we had with Microsoft was we're moving to Intune, modern management, that whole mantra, and it's sort of ingrained. Just conversation after conversation sort of helped us make a decision in a way that I think the best position for us to be in would be positioning ourselves for the future.
Right.
And like you said before, we still manage both co-managed and we have an Intune managed only capability, and we still have some Win 10, very small subset of machines, but we still have some Win 10 in the environment. And as we refresh those devices, we're taking the opportunity to move away from the co-management,
cloud-centric,
and going straight. There are some instances where we're still working on some engineering elements that we need to sort out, and they may have to stay hybrid for another few months. But really, our goal and our mantra now is to just be Intune managed and cloud managed, right?
The devices that you had before, so Windows 10. And you were trying to get to, or you did get to Windows 11, were they new devices, or did you refresh existing devices?
Yeah. Great question, mate. Look, we like most organisations, I would imagine, we have a refresh cycle.
Sure.
And we have a period where we'll try and a quarter of the fleet we try and replace every year.
Oh, I see.
So that's our effort, and so we try and turn over devices within a 3 to 4 year period, and keep them refreshed. Obviously, with Windows Hello and IR cameras, and there is some hardware challenges.
TPM and all that stuff.
TPM2, and all of those things that we need to have in place, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, we can't do that adoption.
Exactly.
So one of the key elements of the success really has been that we've really pushed hard to a 4 year cycle of replacement. We're able to get IR cameras to the fleet. To your point, TPM chip uplift so that we can do and use the IR and the Windows Hello and all of these features. BitLocker,
right? You're doing
100%,
encryption, obviously.
We do. 100%. Yeah. Look, security is a massive focus.
I can imagine, especially in a financial institution,
100%.
Security has to be, utmost priority.
We are, and we are really challenged. That is at the forefront of everything we do. Security is absolutely the most essential part of. Obviously, we need to provide for our colleagues and give a great user experience, but we don't do anything without consultation with security and how we go about doing that, and we won't proceed until obviously we get appropriate approval to do so.
So I'm assuming that as we're segueing into the security space here, so you are doing conditional access. You're doing, obviously you got encryption, Microsoft Defender.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we're using that. Yep.
Sentinel, those kind of tools, right?
Yeah.
And all right, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, look, it's a big part of what we do. We're trying to consume and use as many of the Microsoft product suite that we can. Look, that's been helpful for us. The one thing I will say as well, over the last few years, we've really leaned into making use of a lot of the Microsoft tooling.
The integration pieces are really nice, right? I mean, from your productivity tools to your OS and security and IT and everything like that. It's just
spot on.
Integrate.
Exactly. And look, I go back to what I said at the start, where we spoke about application compatibility. With using a lot of the Microsoft products, it's actually taken that tax off the machine. So while we'd have to purchase a procure or purchase some software to do a need or a function,
Right.
And then there would be maybe another bit of software that would overlap.
Mm-hmm.
It would create what we call, inside an app, a bit of a tax on the machine. Well, it is, and they, CPU and memory and all those things get somewhat affected.
Sure.
So, being able to remove and make the machine leaner, in the sense that we let Microsoft do all that work to make sure that they all Teams and Outlook and all of the services that we
make
can consume.
Microsoft do the work, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, work smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about is, when you talk to some customers, they still have Windows 11, eligible devices and stuff, but they're still sticking on Windows 10 because they're like, wait, we want to wipe and reload and things like that, and whatever. But you can still work in a hybrid environment, right?
Sure.
And things like that.
Yes, you can.
So in-place upgrades, is that something that you did, even though that is not completely cloud, right?
Yeah, that's
to get them to 11 while still being on your
very. Look, we've had that challenge, no doubt. We could go faster with Win 11 if we did that.
Yeah.
Or do we take the opportunity to do it once?
Sure.
And like I said before, I mean, we want everything Win 11. We've still got a bit of challenges. We do have that hybrid and in-place upgrade. It is available to us. We're resisting as best we can, because we do just want everything cloud managed. Right?
Okay.
So there are some circumstances and instances where we may have to do in-place upgrades.
So that's generally what we try to educate or emphasize to our customers, and I do that too. Like, listen, for your existing devices, it's okay, stay hybrid. Anything that you're replacing, net
Correct.
new, things like that, don't do that. Just
Take
go
the
straight
opportunity.
cloud, go Windows 11, right? New credentials and things like that.
Correct. Yeah.
So I like that approach as well.
Look, and the reality is, and one of the benefits has been for us, is once you're managing everything from within Intune, or you're not hybrid joined, the requirement on-prem infrastructure sort of dissipates a bit more too, right? So the need for that first time log on, you need a DC in the building, you need to be connected on a corporate network. Those type of things, they disappear.
They disappear.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're able to actually separate yourself and remove yourself from some of that infrastructure.
Sure.
That, I mean, it's still a required service, and obviously on-prem AD and all those things are obviously still very important.
I have to say that I worked many years in higher education at a university and stuff like that, and I remember when someone, a department or whatever, will purchase one computer, one laptop, or whether it's 5 or 10 or whatever, it's purchased, it comes from the vendor, it goes to a tech center, whatever, a depot we call it, right?
Yeah.
And the individual actually opens it up, plugs it in, re-images it, right? Packs it back up, ships it to the office, to whoever it is. They unbox it, now they gotta, it was tedious.
Yeah.
And now with cloud, with Autopilot, I'm sure you're using Autopilot,
Yeah, we
right?
are. Yeah.
You
Zero
just
logistics is what we call
Exactly.
it. Right? And it's very self-explanatory. You're spot on. So whatever vendor we have to provide our desktops, laptops, we just have them help us enroll in Intune.
Sure.
The device lands, it can be the middle of Australia, it could be in another country.
Yeah.
Someone could be a remote worker. They can have the box delivered to their house.
And they're ready to go.
They're ready to go. We know, no longer. And, obviously it's pretty important as well, Hajit, with respect to remote working, things have changed.
Sure.
Offices aren't as full as they used to be.
Right.
So, I think it's the way of the future.
Right.
And obviously too, in situations where people are remote, it is difficult. And you are spending more time, more money, more effort in re-imaging a machine when it lands, and you've got to build it. You need a build service in your building. You probably can do only 20, 30, depends on your network infrastructure at a time. There's all of these limitations.
Yeah.
They all disappear. So
a lot of people don't realize is that you don't need to re-image to get from the pro version of Windows 11 to Windows 11 Enterprise. It's a flip of a switch with applying the licenses, right?
Yeah.
The E3s and the E5s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Policies. I want to talk to you about policies.
Yeah.
Group policies and Intune policies.
Yeah.
So where are you at with that?
We're still going. We have, without giving too much away, 15 years ago, we even use group policy to deploy software. So we were a heavy, and considering we have 1,500 apps, we used group policy for everything,
like
right?
crazy.
Like crazy.
Yes. And you get a bloat.
Yeah, you do, right? Look, to be fair, at the time, whilst people might cringe at the thought, it was a very effective service. It was architected that way, and it was able to work.
Yeah.
The machine is ready when the user finally gets an opportunity to log on. That can take a little bit of time because obviously we've got policy processing before the user logs on, computer policy applying. So we've gone all the way from that. So that's where we were 15 years ago, going back a bit now, show my age. But we were in that position. We heavily relied on it. We're not there yet fully with Intune.
Sure.
There's still, there's a little bit of maturity that I think needs to be there still for us to be full Intune. But,
But you're not porting over your legacy policies from...
Whatever makes sense.
You're starting from new, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, when you're in Intune, you got your...
That's right.
Modern devices, you're like, hey, let's figure out what is right here.
That's it. We get an opportunity to, I would almost say greenfield's opportunity, right?
Sure.
Where we get to start again. Here's the environment. We need to make sure that we've got security and we've got the right policies in place to support and service the devices. But we're not, we eventually, I see obviously in the future that there'll be a point where it is all in tune. We're just working, and we're working pretty close with Microsoft. We're having some really good meetings with a lot of the product and engineering teams. We're catching up with them regularly, and we're just trying to get a feel for where the total direction on that one is.
And I can attest the people that you're talking to, because I know who they are. They're really awesome.
Yeah,
They're great.
yeah. No, they've been excellent. Well, and that team that you speak of, that engineering team that you speak of, they're the ones that really gave us the nudge.
The nudge.
To go, right, go.
Trust us, let's do this.
Yeah.
We'll hold you.
Don't worry about hybrid
we
managed.
Got your back.
Yep, go full Intune and cloud managed. So we took it. Look, in fairness, our executive team as well is pretty, they want us to be modern.
Sure.
And they want us in a position where if something new drops, we can make available. Now, with Intune, Microsoft are turning services and features on all the time. We can use them straight away.
Yeah.
So that's the other benefit, right? Whenever something's made available in the portal, we can look at consuming that service pretty much straight away, and that's another benefit, right? Previously, you might have to do a domain upgrade or a schema update, or you might have to do something on premise before you can start leveraging any of those services. Whereas now that schema is really managed by Microsoft.
It is,
and they've done all the engineering to get to a point to make it available for full release to the public. And we've been able to make benefit of the fact that engineering is done by a team that could, and I'm not being disparaging, but way better than others could, because you're writing the code, or Microsoft's writing the code, and they understand it better than
anyone.
One
of the challenges with group policies is that you end up with legacy policies that you're like, are we using this?
Yeah.
And you have a turnover, right? So you have IT pros that work in your company, they're here for 10 years, they move on, someone else takes over.
Yeah.
But they're hesitant, like,
hey,
do I remove this policy, these 10 policies? Let's just keep it.
Yeah.
We'll just keep adding on to it. And then that affects performance of your devices, logons, and bloat and whatnot, right?
100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the challenge we have for our engineering team.
Yeah.
Just challenge everything. If we can do it, let's try.
Let's try.
And that's the mantra.
Does your IT team actually does a lot of dogfooding? Do you have
absolutely.
them like, hey, you got it. You got to use this first. You got to try it first.
100%. Yeah. Oh, we've got a great team. We've got a good non-prod environment. We're able to test this stuff out first.
Great.
We obviously have a good life cycle. We go from dev into test, into into a pilot, and then into prod. So we've got a number of rings we go through from a development.
That's a great approach.
Yeah. So we know by the time we get to full production and we have to push it to 50,000 endpoints or whatever the number may be, we're confident that we've done the work to know that it'll work. Right?
So you're ready for 2025. You got no issues.
Yep.
You're like, bring it on.
I say that now, but you never know what's around the corner. But from an intent point of view, yes.
Yeah.
We want to be, we're challenged to be.
What I mean is, like, you're not like, you're 2000, at midnight when the clock was going to strike.
No, that's not. Hopefully not.
You're like, hey, we got it. No, we got you.
That's
it's
it.
all good.
Yeah, no,
So
exactly.
the other things I want to touch upon. So you talked about patching, right? You're doing that. Obviously, you're probably doing it through Config Manager or Windows Update for Business.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Any? Are you investigating auto patch at this point, or you?
We are. Not auto patch per se. We still think
Windows
there's maybe a little bit of
Auto
work.
Patch,
Yeah, we still think there's a little bit of work from a maturity point of view before we could take that up. We are looking at a product at the moment, but we think that there's huge opportunity. We've got a CMG as well. We patch from the internet. I mean, machines. We don't rely on on-premise infrastructure.
Okay.
We're really pressed to make sure that vulnerabilities are huge. As you can imagine, we're a bank.
Yeah.
Our security and our CIO and our CTO are really, really passionate about making sure we're secure.
Exactly.
And so we've got to the point where we have to deploy all patches, all operating system patches within 14 days. Have to be on with 7 to 14 days.
Right.
There's no exception. I have to be 100%.
True.
It's reported on. It's escalated if it's not available. There's a huge amount of reporting that's done on that. We have no choice. We have to patch. We have to make sure that when a machine connects back to NAB, one of the first things it's doing. We're looking at
absolutely, and you got to do the zero trust mindset, right?
Absolutely,
You trust nothing, and
correct. So we're implementing posture checking. You're obviously not allowed onto the network. You can't connect to NAB systems and infrastructure until you're patched, and that's something that we've been trying to deploy, or we are deploying, and we're actually probably only a couple of weeks away. So from a full production release. So we're forefront.
Fantastic.
Security, front of mind. It's really something that we take really, really seriously.
What about printing?
Yep.
Anything with universal print and things like that?
We haven't chosen and not working with any specific Microsoft print technologies. We do have an incumbent vendor that we work with. They've been really good for us, and we're always looking to try and improve all of the services that we have.
Okay.
We look at everything. So and one of the things our engineering team always ask is what's next, what's coming. So we want to be with architecture. We want to understand what the 3-year, 1-year roadmap. 5 years probably a bit too long with technology these days. But
so the reason I bring that up is because I was prior to my role right now, I used to be a customer engineer working with, I was in the financial side of things and Microsoft. So I was working with banks and all that stuff. So there was one banking customer, and very large. They have like 26 remote locations around the world and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They moved everything to the cloud, right?
Yeah.
Servers and things like that to Azure and Windows 11, no problem, everything. The only thing they had left back was print service.
Right.
So they're like, we were shutting down a data center. We got this thing. What do we do? And I talked to them about Universal Print.
Yep.
And they loved it, and they tested it in whatever, and boom, they're done.
Well, I will say, we can talk about that a little bit. Whilst we're not using that, we all of our infrastructure services that we could possibly host in cloud, we do.
Okay.
So, we've got a huge Azure presence.
Sure.
Our print service is hosted in Azure. So it's very modern. We don't rely on premise.
You're partway there already.
Yeah, correct. We're halfway there, right? We're already in your data, in that data center. We just got to, move. But look, a lot of the supporting services and infrastructure for our fleet is already in Azure.
Okay. Perfect.
Or we've got there are other cloud vendors that we're also work with as well. So we make sure that we're modern.
Okay. Copilot. I gotta get this out of you.
Yeah.
Where you guys at with it? What are your thoughts about it? Where do you think it's gonna go? How are you gonna use it?
I'm pretty excited. There's obviously two parts to this.
Sure.
There's the colleague experience part where transcribing meetings and asking questions of emails and Excel spreadsheets and how do I write a macro. That's all great.
But tech from IT Pro.
This is where I get excited, right? Because from an engineering point of view,
yes.
This is where I think. We've had a bit of a preview of Security Copilot, and having the ability for us to see millions, and we have 50,000 endpoints, as I said at the start.
Sure.
We have millions, tens of millions of lines of logs pouring in every day.
Every day.
And it's just
huge.
not feasible for humans to go through that data,
You're going to miss something, for
We'll
sure.
miss a lot. We do, right?
We do.
There's, you can look for the reds and the errors and the warnings and whatever, but the reality is it's analysis paralysis.
Right.
We can't possibly understand that data unless we're looking for a very specific issue. But with Security Copilot, being able to ask, what's my problem? Show me in a percentage, what's the biggest error that's coming through as of the last week versus a month ago? Asking those human-like questions of data.
Yeah.
And then what we saw and observed was, the ability to then write policy on the fly. So not only can it interpret the data, give you a sound response.
Analyzes, it can. Right.
Yeah, it's able to even create policy to say, would you like me to fix that, right? And I see that engineering that my team does, I see a huge uplift in benefit for that. I just think that is an outstanding next step for engineers to get the access to data that you would never have had.
I think
access to.
it brings confidence, saves time,
Of
right?
course.
And they also feel, less stressed, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, am I missing something? Did we have vulnerability? And this is detecting everything, right?
And we have an incident. We have incidents, right? Everyone has incidents. You have an incident.
It happens.
And you say, what was different from yesterday? You can ask these real, in human language. You can ask questions like that.
Sure.
What difference was there from yesterday in terms of error logs, or what are we seeing? And to get something to finally answer the question, which no human could have.
Right.
Of course, you could find the error and issue, and you could have a team of people. But to your point, saving time, but giving us this access to data that we've never had before. For me, and knowing that I run an engineering team, I think that's the most exciting part of all of the products, coming through.
Yeah, like you said, you have the different type of copilots from your office products and things like that, but this is fascinating when it comes to engineering.
Exactly.
So fantastic.
Beautiful.
So I'm actually really excited to speak with your colleague Samir.
Yep.
And I'm going to dive much deeper into
Beautiful.
the tech and tools and things like that.
Yeah.
This has been a pleasure. Not only being here at NAB, National Australia Bank, second largest bank in Australia, but also beautiful Melbourne.
Turned the weather on.
It's fantastic. You have a beautiful city.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Great to meet you, mate. Really do appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Good on you.